Good morning. Well, a good day for US markets. In fact, the US put to one side the geopolitical tensions. We had the Dow Jones easily snapping a three-day losing streak. The Dow was up 0.8%, rising by almost 200 points, and it's on track to have its best month since January. The S&P 500 up in the order of 0.5%. The Nasdaq, the loser, but it only finished flat. And in intraday trade, it did actually hit its best levels on record. In news last night, the US Department of Agriculture announced up to $12 billion in aid for farmers, which have been affected by retaliatory tariffs from China. These are in states that are politically key for President Trump. There's a focus on pork and also soybeans, having an impact on some stocks like Caterpillar, which rose. But what really had a bigger impact on the share market were companies that released their profit results. That's been the case all week. Massive week as far as earnings go. And in the past day, Alphabet released its numbers. This is Google's parent company, rose about 4%. Its profits and revenue were better than expected, still making most of its money from digital advertising sales. Harley-Davidson was another strong performer. It rose 8%, beat Wall Street estimates with its numbers, but it did warn that its profit margins are likely to come under pressure due to these US tariffs, and these could certainly hurt its input costs, but that was put to one side. Pharmaceutical companies stood out. Eli Lilly, one of the best, up 5%. Its profits were better than expected. The same sort of story for Biogen, which rose about 4%. It raised its guidance, and that seemed to help some other drug companies like Bristol Myers, which rose in the order of 4%. The big loser in overnight trade was Whirlpool. It fell by 14.5%. So its earnings were out in the past day. Profits have been impacted by a lift in raw material costs, so that's been a bit of a weight on its stocks. And the companies that released numbers after hours trade, like AT&T, they were received quite well. Their shares were up today. Now, commodity prices rose quite strongly last night, thanks partly to a bit of a pullback in the US dollar. Oil, one of the standouts, it rose about 0.8%, and that was also partly off the back of a report out this morning, which basically showed there's a bit more demand for oil in the US at the moment. That combined as well with talks of Chinese stimulus has been helping iron ore prices, copper prices, which rose. So the big standouts in overnight trade in London were BHP and Rio Tinto. They both rose about 5% to as much as 6%. So that could certainly bode well for our miners in Aussie trade today. Now, on that note, the Aussie market is set for a better start today. Futures pointing to a gain of about 17 points, or 1/5% for our market. So that if we can hold on to those gains, it would make it a second straight day of gains. And what will certainly receive the most attention in local trade for economists will be an update on inflation. That's out just before lunch. The market's focused on underlying inflation lifting about 0.5% over the quarter, 1.9% over the year. Petrol prices have jumped quite strongly by about 7% in the past 3 months, so that could play a part. But as far as interest rates go, the market's still of the mind there's only about a 12% chance of one rate hike by the end of this year. The Aussie dollar finally is stronger against the greenback. It's sitting at 74.1 US.